Oh yeah! Mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts. How do we like our martial arts? We like it mixed!
Ladies and gentlemen, the first chant from Casey Leydon, the first UFC event of 2023 is upon us. We are on the eve of UFC Vegas 67, and while things are far from normal in the world of MMA, it is nice to feel some sense of normalcy in our lives, as tomorrow at the Apex, the athletes, the fighters, the competitors, they take center stage. They will take over the headlines as we welcome you to our first live preview show of the year on MMAfighting.com. I am Mike Heck, and I am being joined by a crew. First, the Prince of Positivity, and amongst many other titles, he is my best friend, Alexander K. Lee. Hey, buddy.
Hello, my best friend. I'd say we're back, but we're never really gone, are we? I think people have seen plenty of our faces and heard plenty of our voices over the past couple of weeks, even with no UFC cards. But yeah, as you speak for all of us, we can say we are glad to have UFC fights to talk about again. With respect to all the promotions out there that already have already started off their 2023, I think for a lot of fans, this is the beginning of the MMA New Year, UFC Vegas 67.
And also joining us, Mr. No Gray Area, fresh off of his win on BTL against himself, I guess. Jed Meshew. Hello again, sir. How are you?
Look, AK, they may have seen our faces and heard our voices, but they haven't heard these horns, AK. The horns of Fight Week. They're here. We're ready to go. We're down to 11, boys and girls. 11 fights. That is the sweet spot as far as event. I'm loving this card more and more every day. If we could get one more fight to drop off, this will be an A- to start the year for me.
Well, I'm glad
I don't
you brought
know.
him,
I don't know what you're talking about, Jed. Someone tweeted at me, not tweeted at me, but quote tweeted, when we lost a fight this morning, which we'll get to in a bit. They should schedule more fights every week, like 20 or so fights, so we get a full card. With the fight cancellation rate, we have
Never go full Bellator.
We would have 15 fights every week. So some fans out there, at least one fan, wants to make sure we have at least 15 fights every week. So we should be scheduling 20. And I guess if nothing gets canceled, what a treat if we had a 20 fight UFC card, right, Jed?
Never go full Bellator. Look, if you want to watch more fights, I guarantee you can find them. There are plenty of them out there. There's let me look it up because there's an event going on right now. You can not tune into our happy selves, and you can instead go look at that. I'm trying to think who. It's not a big organization. I'll pull it up in a second here. It's Cave MMA 2 from Poland. Boom. Pop that up. Go to Kaposa. Look at his. He has his list of events. Cave MMA 2 from Poland. It's there. Got a former KSW champ going on it. You can watch fights whenever you want. We don't need 20 of them from the UFC.
Hey, we got one.
Actually, Joseph Bosa, I am not happy we lost that fight.
We'll talk about it.
So we're clear. I'm happy we lost a fight, not that fight.
Well, gentlemen, this is the first UFC fight card of the year. It couldn't come soon enough for a lot of people. And, of course, the first UFC fight week, the main event takes a hit because a mouth injury knocks Kelvin Gastelum out of the main event with Nassourdine Imavov, and ever the gamer, ever the entertainer on top of that, Sean Strickland steps in on short notice for a light heavyweight bout, and he becomes the first UFC fighter since Tito Ortiz in late 2000 and early 2001 to headline back-to-back UFC events. A lot to talk to you fellas about, but AK, Jed started things off by throwing out potential grades. So let's begin with you. A lot of firsts going down this year with this card, including this will be your first gymnastics score of 2023.
Oh.
What you got, man? Give the people what they're here for.
I hadn't even thought about it. It's almost unfair to grade it because the main event got changed this week. Some would argue this is a better main event. I know, Sean Strickland, just by nature of being more active over the past couple of years, has maybe built up more of a fan base than Calvin Gastelum. A lot of people weren't giving Gastelum much of a chance against Imavov anyway. And again, just kind of based on what I'm seeing, they kind of like the Strickland Imavov matchup from a stylistic standpoint. So I don't know. People could say the card got better, but yeah, we just lost a fight. We're down to 11. We lost the original main event. Some other interesting fights. I'm trying to remember. We kind of lost out on. I mean, Jeff Neal Shavkat was at some point tied to this card. It kind of sucks that that the card has turned out the way it is. So if I give it a low rating, again, it doesn't really reflect the what the matchmakers put together. But I mean, at most, I mean, what this is like an 8 and 8.1, sort of like the bare minimum you can go for a UFC card. 8, 8.1, 8.2, if everything turns out well. We could get a lot of highlights on the prelims. There's a lot of unknown names. We have a lot of fights that could be mismatches. Like we'll find out in what direction, what wants to actually step in there. But yeah, anytime you have this many unknown properties, you could get a lot of highlights. So prelim could deliver. Main card has some good name value. I'll go 8.1, 8.2. If you'll want to go higher, I wouldn't blame them. It's really not a terrible card. But again, it's almost better to just give it like an incomplete rating because it's not what the matchmakers originally put together.
Jed, Nassourdine Imavov, a guy that we have been very high on. He's coming into his own, it appears, and he had that tough fight with Phil Haas a little under 2 years ago. Lost a close one there, and since then, 3 straight wins. He finished Ian Heinisch, finished Edmund Shabazian, had a hard-fought decision win against Joaquin Buckley. There are questions that need to be answered before we start crowning him, so to speak. And then we have Sean Strickland on the other side, new opponent on less than a week's notice. Obviously, he's tough as hell. He's coming off 2 straight losses. The first to Alex Pereira at UFC 276, one of your favorite fights of the year. Got knocked out in that one. And then a month ago, faces Jared Cannonier and loses a super close fight. Now we have Strickland versus Imavov. First main event of the year. Your thoughts the day before?
It's a fight. AK is a generous man to give this a 8.1 or whatever he has deemed is the min score we can give, because that is not where I'd be on this particular fight card myself. Look, as far as short notice fights go, you could do worse, certainly. The whole weight thing is very interesting. Strickland coming in 10 pounds heavier than Imavov. I know Imavov was into his weight cut, but I still would have thought he would have come in closer to the 200 limit, 200 pounds or whatever. So that's interesting, especially because when they square off, it does not look like Strickland is substantially bigger than Imavov. So that adds a wrinkle. This is a fight that I'd be more interested in with a full camp. I don't think that this is going to play very well for Strickland on short notice, though, frankly. That's kind of it. I think I would favor Imavov regardless, but certainly part of Strickland's strength is his volume and his cardio, his ability to continue doing the same thing that he's going to do for all 5 rounds. And that one of the bigger questions I have is how Imavov holds up in an extended period of combat, in the championship rounds. And now I don't think we're going to get that. I think Gastelum presented much more interesting in-cage challenges for Imavov. Dude can't be knocked out with a brick, so Imavov is going to have to fight him for probably the full 25, and Gastelum is more one-shot dangerous than Strickland's going to be. I think this is probably going to be Imavov just being a class above. Certainly with the prep time, I think he's going to show out in that regard. So it's not Sean Strickland largely isn't in super fun fights either, so that's not. It doesn't bode well. I think the Gastelum fight was much more fun. There's a case, and a good one, that this is more relevant for the middleweight division given their rankings, but not my particular cup of tea this weekend.
AK, a lot of people have been asking you brought this up as well, in the overall grand scheme of things. Did we actually get a better main event? Because I agree with Jed, and I talked about this on BTL yesterday. I feel like we would get more questions answered about Imavov fighting Kelvin Gastelum. Now, obviously, like you said, this is a better opportunity for him. He's fighting a guy that's higher in the rankings, chance to shake things up a little bit at 185. But is this a better fight stylistically for the long-term growth of where Nassourdine Imavov wants to go? Not to mention what Jed also brought up, Sean Strickland has a double-digit weight advantage with this fight moving up to 205. So is this the better main event? And how much do you think that weight difference, how much of an impact do you think that's going to make in this fight?
Well, first, compared to Gaston, I'm just going to say, it is still Strickland. Just say not it. Strickland is still going to present a challenge to Imavov if this goes past the third round. He doesn't push the pace quite like Calvin Gastelum. I think we can all agree on that. We could describe some of his more lackluster performances as leisurely, his sort of leisurely, sparring, striking style. So in that sense, he's not going to create that urgency that a fight with Calvin Gastelum would, and that is unfortunate. That is what we're really missing out on here. But I do want to see how Imavov performs if this goes past the third round. Because we've seen mixed results. I mean, he in his most recent fight with Phil Haas, I don't want to say faded, but maybe just let the foot off the gas. I don't know if it's a cardio issue or more of a focus issue. Clearly up 2 rounds, maybe just thought, okay, well, I don't want to take any risks against a guy like Buckley, who's this huge heavy hitter. And then the fight, I think it was the one with Phil Haas, was almost the opposite, where because that's the one he lost, right? He lost that one, and he came on late. He came on late in the third, so he's shown that he can come in late, but he's also shown that maybe the third round isn't that great for him. Now we're going to see potentially a 4th and 5th round. I'm mostly a believer that the strong Imavov that we saw in the Haas fight, the one that he lost, is like that's there, that he is capable of just turning it on 3rd, 4th, 5th round, or like I said, just having a consistent performance through 5 rounds. I believe that is the case. But the question is there again, especially with a guy like Strickland, who maybe not quite as tough as Gastelum, maybe not quite as speedy again, it's not going to put as much pressure on. But there's some similar challenges. But I can see this disappointment in why people want to see the Gastelum fight. The weight thing I don't think is a huge issue. Imavov certainly has shown he'll mix in wrestling. I think he was more inclined to do it against Buckley because he looked like he was like twice Buckley's size, so it just made a lot of sense for him to do it. He could mix it in. We could see some mixing of the martial arts against Strickland, break up that rhythm. It's very important. Certainly, we'll see some grappling. Imavov has a really strong clinch game, and there, I guess we could see where the weight makes the difference. But I'm betting on fight night they're not that far apart when they actually step in the cage. I can't imagine. I know on the scales it was 10 pounds heavier for Strickland, but once Imavov rehydrates, it can't be more than, I don't know, a 3 or 4 pound weight difference. So that to me is pretty much a non-factor. I don't think that weight is as dramatic as it looked on the scales of the officials.
Yeah, I didn't take a ton away from Imavov sort of fading away in the Buckley fight, because he probably had just like a super adrenaline dump fighting at Paris and the crowd behind him, and things got a little testy between those two guys. So I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. But what is actually at stake here, Jed? I mean, Strickland needs this one for sure. It's very difficult to come back from 3 straight losses in this division, more so with how it's been shaping up with Pereira. Will he run it back without Asanya? Whitaker not fighting Cost anymore, so you don't know what's happening there. What's Hamzat going to do at this point? Like, there's a lot going on. We got surging contenders. Imavov is rolling. He's probably noticing guys like Roman Dolidze getting a huge fight with Marvin Vettori. Like I said, he could certainly shake things up here. But what's actually at stake here? It's a short notice fight. Is there a lot on the line here?
Kind of. Actually, yeah, because, I mean, if the UFC wants to throw Strickland a bone because he's jumping in, cool. But if he takes 3 losses, he's done. We're done with him as a serious contender. We're probably done with him as a contender anyway, because the truth is Sean Strickland isn't that good. He's exceedingly competent, but I've frequently called him and pretty much stand by this, that he's a poor man's Marvin Vettori, and Marvin Vettori got a title shot and didn't win it and won't win it. Sean Strickland is just a step down. He probably won't ever get to the title shot. He's just a competent guy who's going to make anybody in there work for it, but isn't going to beat most of the best people. And so if he takes a 3rd loss in a row here, that, even if they want to do him a favor because he did them one, which is never guaranteed with the UFC either. Certainly, they say that they got your back, but they might still just toss him to Bo Nickel or some shit, So he really needs this win, and he did not position himself well for it, but maybe it'll work out for him. And conversely, Imavov probably needs it less. He's younger, has a brighter future, but this is a big, in the UFC rankings, jump up for him. I think Strickland's 7 in the UFC's rankings right now. Imavov is on the fringe of the top 15. Maybe he's like 14 or 13, something like that. So this will be a big step up for him if he goes out here and gets this win, even on the short notice and the circumstances. And even though it's not at middleweight, it's a light heavy, he's still going to replace Sean Strickland in those rankings. And then we're talking one, maybe two fights from a title shot there. So there are kind of a lot. There are more stakes to this fight than there were with the Kelvin Gastelum fight. Actually, even if I think the fight itself is less compelling than the Gastelum one was.
So according to the UFC rankings, not that they matter, because we know which rankings do matter, Imavov is ranked 12th and Sean Strickland is ranked number 7. But do you agree with that, AK? Who needs this one more in your opinion?
I don't know if Strickland needs it that badly, just because he's such a he's so well liked in the eyes of the company at this point. He's taking the fight on short notice. I mean, on less than a week's notice, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I say a month. I guess we're almost 3 months, 3 weeks, a month now, since his last fight. It's not going to hurt him too badly to take a loss. He has every excuse in the world. Again, he's on a losing streak. He's facing a guy, one of the hottest names at 185 right now. That guy was preparing for a fight. He wasn't. It would suck. I mean, 3 straight losses for anyone in any division, especially someone with, I probably who still thinks he can contend for a title someday in Sean Strickland. I have 3 straight losses. Boy, that's going to send you back a far way, especially when you're not like a highlight machine. You're not a guy who can, just rattle off 2 or 3 straight first round knockouts and get back into title contention. So it's going to hurt him in that sense. Imavov, I don't want to say there's that much pressure on him, but he is. I haven't seen the odds, but I have to imagine he's, at least 2-1, at least minus 200. Jed, is that accurate?
No.
What is he?
-1. He's minus 135.
Jed, should I get back?
You should always get back into betting, AK.
Should I be betting on MMA again?
They opened as a pick'em, I think. Yeah. If they didn't open as a pick'em earlier this week when we were recording No Bets Bar, the fight was a pick'em.
That's a lot of respect.
It is a lot of respect. I really do think it comes down to the fact that Strickland's been in a bunch of 5-rounders and how Imavov looked down the stretch against Buckley and maybe fading a little bit, and they're just giving some respect. But I'm with you. I think this line's way off. I don't love Strickland coming in on short notice. I don't love Strickland coming in off of a 5-round loss, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I'm a little surprised by how close this line is.
Yeah. We don't want to downplay this main event too much, but it does feel like neither guy gains a ton with a win. I'm speaking for myself now. I don't feel either guy gains a ton with a win. I don't feel either guy loses a ton with a loss. Honestly, I almost feel like the result of this fight by the end of 2023, I don't want to say we'll have forgotten about it. I mean, that's really true with almost anything in MMA. After friggin' six weeks, much less a whole year. But I do feel like it's a solid main event from a competitive standpoint. But gosh, how much stakes are on the line?
Imavov gets 5 spots in the UFC's rankings. That's a lot. That is a big jump.
It's the UFC's rankings, though. Who really? No. Also, it's also possible. You never know. Sometimes they do the.
Think about how many years Drew Dober is going to have to fight at lightweight to move up 5 spots. In a decade he will get to move 5 spots.
What if instead they drop? Hold on, we've seen how screwy the rankings are. What if instead they drop Strickland and to 9 and then move Imavov to 8 or something? You know what I mean? It's possible. It'd be weird.
I guess I could see that.
Yeah, and it's same thing can happen with ours.
The biggest winner this week will be Roman Dolidze then.
Yeah, and same thing can happen with ours. I think Imavov. So we have Strickland tied for 11. I'm pretty sure Imavov would just take the 11th spot. I don't think a win over Strickland, no matter how it happens, gives him enough juice to take a top 10 spot. I just can't imagine even 15-second knockout. I still don't think he goes in the top 10 over some of the established names. Though I could be wrong. If a huge win, people might say, "Hey, he's better than Gegard."
I'll probably bump him.
Yeah.
I currently have him at 14, and I have Strickland at 15. But
yeah. Oh, you already have him above him.
Yeah, I'm very willing to believe that if he, again, we've talked about this on several shows. I love potential. If he shows something in this fight, I'm happy to move him up there.
Oh,
So
okay. He could
We'll see
go
how
for
it
a big
goes.
jump from the Jed Meshew. We talk about the UFC rankings. We talk about the MMA fighting consensus rankings. We don't talk about the stakes in the Jed Meshew rankings quite enough because
It
if
won't
there's one
be
thing we know,
that big.
no, but we know a big
I could.
performance. You can
I
soar up the Jed rankings.
Jake Matthews jumped into my welterweight rankings
we
off one
we don't need
win,
to talk
and
about
now
that. You weren't the only one.
Where was he? Where was he, Jed? Where did you put him?
he was either number 10 or just outside the top 10, and that was
He was
that
number
didn't
10.
age all that well. Was he number 10? Yeah, that didn't age all that well.
He looked like a top 10 welterweight in that fight with Andre Fialho. All right, he'll always have that.
He looked so good.
Watch that fight in isolation. You'll think you're watching a top 10 welterweight. Okay, so I don't blame you, Jed.
That's what I was like. Top 10 guy. He's finally putting the pieces together. He's still only 25. Sky's the limit. And then Matthew Simmelsberger's like, "Oh, I'm just a really good athlete, and you can't deal with that." It's like, shit. You're right.
And listen, maybe this happens for Imavov on Saturday. I don't know. Maybe this happens for Imavov.
Yeah, Sean Strickland's not that good of an athlete is the problem.
Mm.
If he wins impressively, I'll probably move him up around the top 10. I don't know. It'll depend on how I'm feeling about Jared Cannonier, you know?
Yeah. That's what I meant is maybe he puts on a career best performance and has us all going like, oh, like he would have killed Gastelum, or he would, he's ready for a top 5 guy. We'll see.
So, Jed, are you going with Imavov here? Is that your pick?
Yeah, I'm going with Imavov for sure.
AK.
Yeah, I like Imavov too. It's Jed said it right at the top. A lack of prep time for me is huge. Sean Strickland, I know, a guy who's in the gym all the time, but huge difference between a guy who's regularly in the gym and staying in shape and a guy who's actually actively preparing for a fight. Full training camps for both men. I think Strickland has a much better chance of pulling off the upset. I think the odds that we mentioned would make a lot more sense to me. Imavov just being like minus 135 in that range would make a lot more sense if both guys were on full camps. But preparation definitely matters. So yeah, and I think Imavov is very different than Jared Cannonier. So it's not like just going from Jared to Imavov is like, oh, no big deal. It's like hugely different, I think, style wise. So yeah, I got to lean with Imavov by decision.
Yeah. Let me also jump in just because I see a comment here from some Nathan Baker. I think no, it's not somebody in the comments like, oh, Strickland fought a month ago. He's not that out of shape. That's not really how this works. Your fight preparation is to peak. Like you are fighting for a date and your entire camp is built to peak at a specific time. That's why like fighters don't like it when fights get pushed back a week because it fucks everything up. So he's not going to be like just straight coming off the couch or whatever. Like, and he's a fit dude and does it, but there's a world of difference between I was preparing for a main event a month ago and I'm fighting on 4 days notice tomorrow. Like it's just not the same.
I do think despite the short notice, this is going to be a very, very close fight. I think it's going to be super competitive. I actually think it's going to be sort of a game of inches in a lot of ways. And I don't expect, AK, to your detriment, and maybe you're happy that I'm going to say this. I don't expect a lot of mixing of the martial arts here. Strickland has pretty good takedown defense. I don't see Imavov being able to take him down at will. So I don't think we're going to see a ton of fireworks here, if we're being honest with this late switch up. But I do think Imavov will be able to create some separation in some of these rounds. I think he'll have some bigger moments on the feet. I think when we look back at the stats, Strickland's probably going to outvalue him in almost every round, but I think Imavov will just have the bigger moments in the fight. So I will go with Imavov to win a decision. This is going to be close. Yeah, I'll go with Imavov to edge it out. And I do think it's going to be a very close fight, but we'll see what happens. That's why they get in the cage and do it. And we just make calculated guesses here. So that's the main event. I do want to touch on the co-main event because I think the fight is pretty awesome. Dan Ige taking on Damon Jackson. And Jed, we got two guys on different trajectories right now. We have Action Jackson, who's won 4 in a row, opened a lot of eyes with his most recent win over Pat Sabatini. And then we have Dan Ige entering this fight with 3 straight losses. But the last few years for this guy, just going through the ringer. One of the tougher slates, one of the tougher resumes. Mirsad Bektic, which doesn't mean a ton now, but it meant a little bit more back then. Then Edson Barboza gets 2 wins there. Loses the main event decision to Calvin Kattar in a pretty fun fight. Knocks out Gavin Tucker, who was tearing it up heading into that one. loses a main event to Korean Zombie, lost a competitive decision to Josh Emmett, who's about to fight for the interim title, and then he gets chucked in there with freaking Movsar Evloev, who has all the makings of a future title challenger. Jed, this is a fantastic fight. It's a big and important spot for both guys. I love it. Your thoughts on it?
Full agree. It's a great fight. I don't think you can run this as a main event, which was, I think, why the UFC felt compelled to find a replacement for Imavov. But I don't want to put words in AK's mouth. To me, this is a co-main event, though. This is not a penultimate fight. And I'm really interested to see what Damon Jackson looks like. He came in the Pat Sabatini win, especially given the circumstances, the personal tragedy, and that's his best performance. If he comes out with that kind of energy, that kind of fire, it could be a really bad night for Dan Ige. And I'm just not sure. I think that this is maybe Damon Jackson has turned a corner since the Ilia Topuria loss, but this is a great benchmark to figure out. Is he about to make his run? Or has he just been flying high on a couple of easier opponents? Because Ige is the toughest guy he's fought since Topuria. Like, no questions asked there. And on the other side, Ige lost 4 or 5. As you mentioned, a run of absolute murderers, but he lost them all. And that is, when you've lost 3 in a row and 4 or 5, that can get to you mentally, like, well, shit, man, maybe I don't have it. How does he react? Because this is a big step down, or at least it seems like a big step down in competition compared to the level of the other dudes who's fighting. So this fight's awesome. It's really compelling. I'm very interested in what happens. And I'm going with my boy Damon Jackson because he and I share a birthday. So my birthday brother, Action Jackson, let's go, baby.
So right now, according to DraftKings, Danny Ige, small favorite, minus 125. The comeback on Action Jackson, plus 105. AK, what do you think of this fight? And go ahead and check out a prediction.
Yeah, I think as people know, I'm pretty big on strength of competition. It's why Tony Ferguson's still ranked in the top 10 of my personal MMA fighting global rankings.
If you haven't, go listen to the airing of grievances episode of the ranking show, because good heavens, did we let AK have it for that?
Listen, it was all with love. It was all with love, and I accept it.
There was no love for me. No love.
Oh, okay. Well,
disdain.
Your words did sting the most, I will say. But it means a lot. And when you look at the records of Danny Ige and Damon Jackson recently, Mike just ran down again, Evloev, Emmett, Korean Zombie, some other names. And Damon Jackson has been like fine people, but like Daniel Arguedo, who's fighting on today's card. Saturday's card. Kamela Kirk, who's okay. Like he's beaten some decent names, but Ige has faced a much tougher competition. And that to me matters. He's younger. He's about 3 years younger. He's got a few less pro fights. There's just that little bit less mileage there. So I think I'm leaning towards the slightly favored fighter, Dan Ige, to break his streak. Damon Jackson is really, really good. I'm glad he got this fight. He deserves a ranked guy. I don't know if Dan Ige, is he still in the UFC rankings? 13. I'm looking now. 13.
He is 13. Yep.
Yeah.
Which is a bit surprising, but okay.
Again, I think a lot of the voters, whoever it is that votes in the UFC, are a little bit like me. They're a bit rigid. They can be a bit rigid with like moving people up and down, and then they look at like, oh, he beat Mirsad Bektic. Oh, he beat Edson Barbosa. And I think that Barbosa,
they still have
wins.
Edson in the rankings,
right? So if they have him there, I guess they're doing MMA math like I would, and be like, oh, well, Ige beat him, so how if we have Barbosa in, how can we take Ige out? So that sort of thing. So that win has helped him to stay almost like a relevant name, aside from, of course, the guys that he keeps getting put in big, notable featherweight fights. But that win over Barbosa has done a lot of heavy lifting as far as like, oh, is Dan Ige a featherweight contender? It's like, yeah, he beat Edson Barbosa. But I do think, like I said, those kind of performances are meaningful. The fights with Evloev and Zombie weren't like particularly close, if I recall. I don't recall there being much like controversy there. So he kind of showed he's a step, below that level. Is Damon Jackson a step above where he is now? That's the question. It'd be cool. It'd be cool to see Damon Jackson win. Maybe have a numbers next to his name in the official rankings for sure, and maybe crack the global rankings, the MMA fighting global rankings. But I am leaning towards Ige decision win. And Jed, I will disagree on this though. I don't think it is a legitimate co-main event. I think it's a really cool. I think it's a good fight. I think if we wanted to do a co-main event, I'm sorry. I think if we wanted to do a co-main event,
there is a better co-main fight.
Yeah,
from a name brand value, but that's going to be the worst fight of the whole year.
And you don't know. But listen, Vieira and Pennington.
That's going to be a 14 minutes of hugging along the fence and maybe a little bit of boxing until we get into those clinches. That fight is going to be misery.
Ketlen Vieira might get a title shot off of this win. I don't know. It's certainly possible. So there's that stakes to it. It features 2 of the top 6 in our according to our
I agree. I'm not saying that wouldn't be a co-main event.
2 of the top 6 best fighters in the illustrious women's bantamweight division. So that should be, for me, that would be a more appropriate co-main. I think Ige and Jackson is a fine penultimate fight. If you want to call it a penultimate fight, I agree.
By definition, it is a penultimate fight.
So it is. I'm sorry. Yes, by the barest definition, but it's a good penultimate fight. I should say. My emphasis is on the word fine. It's a fine penultimate fight. It's not just a penultimate fight. It's fine. It's a good one. It's a good one. But it is not a real co-main event. If they had put Vieira and Pennington there, I would say that is a real main event. Co-main, excuse me. It has stakes to it. But really, no fight on this is knocking down the door as oh, this is such a huge
I can't
matchup.
Believe you don't think Ige Jackson's a co-main.
What's
you're the prince of picking. You're the prince of pickiness now.
It's a fun fight, but I have certain criteria. It's got to have like some sort of either like a huge fan favorite in it. Like I like Damon Jackson. I don't think he's a fan favorite. I don't know if that's accurate. He should be, but I don't think he has that kind of following.
The winner of this guy is probably in our top 15 or just outside of it. Hopefully. You've got two of the 25 best fighters in the world in their weight class.
Yes. And if we're talking again, if we're comparing featherweight and like women's bantamweight, being in the top 25 of featherweight, frankly, is probably more meaningful than being a top 10 women's bantamweight.
It's about the same as being in the top 10 of women's bantamweight if we're there. So it's just that I'm shocked. I thought for sure you'd be like, hey, we're getting a co-main. Again, I'm fully on board. The Vieira Pennington should have been, frankly, the best thing the UFC has done this year thus far is replace Kelvin Gastelum, because I had a real fear that we were going to get Vieira Pennington would be moved into the main event spot. And they just drop Imavov off, and then, this would be a tough hang if that's your main event.
The weird thing is, heaven forbid, between now and Saturday night that main event somehow falls off, Vieira and Pennington will become.
It has to be.
It has to be, right? Yeah.
As long as that's only 3 rounds, but if they did we dropped it out, so we're moving it to 5. Jess,
No words.
But hey, it is the first women's bantamweight fight since October. So
yes, celebrate.
We're breaking ground. It's historical.
Is moved. No matter who wins, it will create some sort of movement in the division. Not in our rankings necessarily. Vieira just hold her spot, but Vieira will theoretically
something will have happened.
Number one contender. Yeah, Vieira will be the number one contender, or Raquel Pennington will be the 3rd best women's 135er in the world.
Well, I think this is the co-main event. I'm leaning Dan Ige. I think this fight week means a lot to him. Sharing the card with Puna Soriano. These are lifelong buddies who, as kids, dreamed of being on a UFC card together, and it's finally happening. And they're fighting in back-to-back fights. So I think he's fired up. It's going to be a battle, but in the end, I do think Ige, like AK said, he's a bit more battle-tested, has fought the way tougher competition. And I think that will ultimately be the difference maker here. Rest of this main card, mentioned Puna Soriano. He's fighting Roman Kopylov. That should be a lot of fun. I doubt that goes to the cards. We have Ketlen Vieira and Raquel Pennington. High stakes women's bantamweight fight. We have Umar Nurmagomedov versus Raoni Barcelos kicking off the main card. And Jed, I want to turn this over to you because the betting odds on this one are just off the charts. Umar Nurmagomedov, as of right now, is a minus 950 favorite. Even my dog is stunned by this news. It just seems surprisingly high, doesn't it?
It's a very, very high line. We talked about this in No Bets Barred, and Connor and I were basically just shooting it about all right, well, at what price? Because I don't want to speak for him all the way here, so I'll just go to me. I like Raoni Barcelos. He's a great fighter, he theoretically presents some challenges for Umar. I think Umar is probably better all around, frankly, but Umar's game thus far has felt like it is really reliant on wrestling. He certainly hasn't really had to operate without it. And so Ronnie Barcelos is a good defensive wrestler. If he can shut the takedowns down, how does that play? Does that play at all? So that you can convince me that Haney has a real chance to win this. The truth is, I don't actually think he will. And so we were just talking like, at what point do we feel the price is big enough that might as well take a shot? I think if you got Haney up to like 1,000, then that number just feels so big. But even at these odds, I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm lighting $20 on fire or whatever if I just throw the 20 spot down on a Haney, because Umar's going to win this because Umar might be the best bantamweight in the world. He hasn't proven that by any regard, but I would struggle to pick against him against just about anyone in this division, based on what I've seen and kind of the talk around him. So I understand it. This line to me is priced entirely to say, hey, don't even think about betting on Umar. Just don't even. We don't want to pay out tickets on Umar Nurmagomedov. So here you go. And I think that's an okay way. I may or may not have a bet down on a Haney Barcelos by decision at plus 1,200. So feel free to do with that information what you will. But I'm not banking on that one hitting.
Very strange. Those odds are just crazy. AK, what do you think of these odds?
I'm looking at Barcelos's odds history according to Topology. He's got odds makers feeling some kind of way because, okay, so I'll just go real quickly. His UFC debut, Kurt Hollabaugh, was an underdog, plus 150. He won that by knockout. Chris Gutierrez, his second fight, minus 500 favorite, which it seems crazy now, and he won by submission. But that still seems crazy knowing that we know how good Chris Gutierrez is now. So he was minus 500, minus 1,100 in his next fight. We're talking about Barcelos, by the way, not Nurmi. Minus 1,100 over Carlos Joaquin, which was fine. He fought another Nurmagomedov his next fight, Saeed, minus 105. Khalid Taha, minus 435. Minus 225 against Timur Valiev, he lost. Minus 500 against Victor Henry, he lost. Minus 240. So Trevin Jones. So all his fights are like, except for the Saeed Nurmagomedov fight, are like he's either hugely favored, or in this case, I think it's the first time he's ever been a huge underdog. So very, very weird betting history for Raoni.
AK, so this is funny because we also talked about this in No Bets Card. The other side of this, right? Instead of the Haney part, look at Umar. Umar's the same. He is the same size of a favorite over Haney Barcelos as he was over Nate Maness. And no disrespect to Nate Maness, but Haney Barcelos is a better fighter than Nate Maness. Like, why? What are we? Brian Kelleher, he was a minus 900 favorite against Brian freaking Kelleher, who's a damn good fighter. Like, it's a very weird betting line on this card for sure.
The lowest that Umar has been in his 3 UFC fights, minus 540 for his debut against Sergey Morozov. Yeah, minus 540. That's still insanely high. That's like a massive favorite. Damn.
I mean, at the same, minus 950 is basically 90% to win, though, which that doesn't feel wrong, Yeah,
it's a wild line.
Bantamweight is insane.
It just looks big.
Yeah. We will get to the peeps in a moment, but real quick, AK, low-key banger. Low-key banger. Nothing on the main card. Let's dig deep here.
This whole prelims it's so intriguing to me. We have some great debuts. Mendonça, Claudio Ribeiro, Rebecca, Jimmy Flick coming back. So if I have to pun, I am most interested. I'll go. It seems so easy to pick the prelim main event or the prelim headliner, but I am really intrigued by Javid and Mateus Mendonça because Javid is someone who I think has all the makings of a top 15 bantamweight, but they're throwing him in there with a super, super dangerous guy making his UFC debut. Undefeated. I mean, he's got his own hype behind him. They are not protecting either of these guys. I think it's one of those fights that I sort of touched upon this earlier in the show, like, looking back at 2023 when we do it in December, one of these guys I feel like will be ranked, and only one of them, and it could be the winner of this fight that really sets the tone for their 2023 campaign. So I think either Javid or Mendoza will be somewhere in the top 15 of the MMA fighting global rankings by the end of the year. I think both guys are that good. And I honestly have no idea who to pick yet. I have not finished my predictions for this event, but my eyes are, listen, the bantamweight division is just on fire. It's so damn good. And I love that we got one opening the main card, closing out the prelims. Really exciting. So yeah, I'm going with sort of the obvious prelim pick here, but I'd say like almost every fight on the prelims has some like legitimate intrigue to it.
Jed, what you got?
Oh, AK's super wrong on all fronts. I don't think every fight is some level of intrigue. I care very little about most of this undercard. But, and this is not, I'm not here to tell you that this is going to be a particularly high level fight, but buckle up, baby, because for 7 minutes or less, Abdulrazak Al-Hassan and Claudio Ribeiro are just going to throw him, and some dude's going to get nuked because that's how Ribeiro fights, man. That dude's been out of the first round like once in his career, some dumb number like that. He is coming to absolutely slaughter people. And Abdulrazak Al-Hassan has had some fights that on paper looked like they should be a similar build. Joaquin Buckley, Chaos Williams. No, Chaos Williams was fun. That fight was a knockout.
Yeah. Like it was short. It was short.
There was another one that was supposed to be that like had the same feeling I did with Buckley that kind of didn't deliver, but for the most part, this dude's going to chuck him, and Ribeiro is for sure just going to get after it. So this probably ends in the first round. I would be really surprised if this goes to the scorecards. You're going to get your violence quota filled up on this one for sure. That's my pick all day.
I think like I agree, but it's just like there's no division where that disappoints quite like middleweight, and that's my fear. Is that on paper the perfect matchup, and then we get again possibly one of the less memorable Abdulrazak Al-Hassan fights. But yeah, on paper this should be a first round knockout. This shouldn't last longer than a minute, but it's middleweight. You just never know. Hey,
maybe we'll get D1 Abdulrazak Al-Hassan, and all bets will be completely off.
Where's the judo? Where's the judo?
Yeah. Great question. I'll probably just to be different. You mentioned the Jimmy Flick fight. I'm definitely intrigued by this because I have no freaking idea what we're going to see from Jimmy Flick. I have no clue. And Johnson's a tough out for anybody. Battle former LFA champs. I like that fight. Another one where the odds seem kind of out of whack right now, with Johnson being a minus 345 favorite.
Whoa.
Kind of surprised by that. As you mentioned earlier, we did lose a fight. Sijara Eubanks is out against Priscilla Cachoeira. Weight management issues for Sarge, which unfortunately has been a tale that we've heard many, many times. Jed, why are you so upset? I know you're
I was going to make money. I had a Priscilla Cachoeira plus 200 underdog ticket, and I felt really good about it. And I would have felt even better if Sijara Eubanks had fought while compromised because of her weight cut. And then now it didn't. And so now my first bet of the year is not a plus 200 underdog that I feel good about. It's Jimmy Flick, Charles Johnson under 1.5, which I don't feel great about, but maybe we'll cash anyway because flyweight unders historically have been a good thing for us. We'll see if that continues this year, but it's a bummer. There, you could have lost basically any other fight on this undercard, and I would have been way cooler with it.
Well, there you go. 11 fights total. Not a bad number at all, as this one will lead into the first pay-per-view of the year next weekend with UFC 283. So let's bring in our wonderful producer, E. Casey Leiden, Mr. 3024, Mr. Cauliflower Ear, and he's going to put up some questions from you, the peeps. What do we got?
Hi, peeps.
Hi, Casey. Right. Oh, by the way, before you get to that, I will close the poll. People, please start sending your questions.
Yes.
What were we polling?
We got plenty of feedback. Almost 500 people replied. Who wins the UFC? Just who wins the main event? And very close. Very close. Nassourdine Imavov, 54%. Very close. A lot of respect for Strickland.
Puts the betting lines pretty close to correct then.
Yeah. People like the matchup. Yeah. The odds makers done it again. They're definitely gonna making money off somebody this weekend.
Look, Vegas knows what they're doing. Vegas does not know what they are doing.
So what was the so this line is closer than the Gastelum line, I assume, right?
It's a little further now, I think. I don't know. Hold on, let me pull it up. I'm trying to remember what the Gastelum line was. I'll pull that up, but I feel like that one opened pretty close too. But
it got up to minus 225 for Imavov. It's opened at minus 190.
He was that high?
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, you're right. Then yes, this is closer, which is very surprising.
Yeah, I think
I thought
on the only rankings
closer.
that matter, the MMA Fighting's world rankings, I'm pretty sure I have Imavov the highest ranked amongst all of us.
I will check this now.
I would bet money that is true.
I will check this now.
You definitely have him the highest ranked. You have him in the top 10. Nobody else is going to have him there. If I don't, then nobody else is going to have him.
I have him at number 10. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't even have Strickland in my top 15. So
you do not. He is not in your top 15.
So yeah, no. What I have Kelvin?
I have Strickland at 15. So he is just hanging on.
So the only one of us did. So Gui is only one of the few people that have Imavov behind Strickland, right? Or
no.
I think most everyone does.
Oh, never mind. Okay.
Most of us do.
Because
I'm just the only person.
Some people.
No, and Mike as well. Mike also has Strickland.
I just don't have Strickland in my top 15 at all.
Yeah. Jed, you have a few people. So we're about split.
I have moved on from the Strickland.
We're pretty close to split, but yeah, most people are rocking that. The traditional Strickland in front.
All right. Okay.
What do we got?
With the weight mismanagement, is Sarge being dishonorably discharged?
A+ question. The Watts riot.
Nicely done.
Oh,
well done.
Right.
Well done.
I mean, if we're not, I don't know how you feel, AK, but if we're not there, we are. I mean, the door is open. It's just the UFC's just kind of give her one last nudge out. Maybe they just give her like a really tough fight next. I don't know, but
make her fight at bantamweight.
Not a good look.
No bantamweights. I don't get it. Just you're the promotion. She can show up at 127 if she wants to, but just have her fight at bantamweight.
She was there. She wanted to go back.
I know, but I'm saying, but the UFC controls that. They can't, they just say, well, we'll give you a fight at bantamweight or else move on. This fight was a flyweight, right? Yeah.
It was a flyweight, yeah. So I've seen this question, this as well as why has she been sort of in the good graces of the UFC for so long? It's an interesting question. She has missed weight officially twice for fights that she showed up for. Casey, we remember that. Yeah, officially twice.
It has to be 3.
This doesn't count as official weight miss either, by the way.
I'll tell you, she didn't show up to the weight. Yeah. So she's only officially missed, hit the scales and missed twice. We're not counting the Ultimate Fighter finale, which again, she did not show up to weigh-ins for because she had kidney failure. So if you want to talk about how many times we've talked about her weight issues, it's been 4 solid times. But only 2. Yes.
If you don't show up because your kidneys fail, that's missing weight. I don't
care. Rules rule, Jed. It is not classified as a weight miss. All right, I don't make the rules around here. I'm just saying.
If your body physically rejects its own organs, you didn't make weight.
Yeah. Casey, I
100% agree. I'm just saying, technically, like the UFC, they won't count this as a weight miss.
If it's a she got sick and it's undisclosed or whatever, like they sometimes do, there was an undisclosed illness, I'm willing to be like, well, okay, maybe she did catch the cold.
Maybe her
kidney failure because of dehydration.
Maybe they failed for other reasons. Maybe the kidneys failed for other reasons, Jed. I don't know. But Casey, we were together for that one.
Kidneys we were historically just fail.
Yeah, we were on site for that because I can't remember where we were, but we were definitely together. We were with Ariel too. And then we were so excited because Roxanne ended up getting the title fight instead, and then ended up losing to Nico Montano. And then
that was in Nevada. So if you were on site, it was in Nevada.
Is that where? Maybe we're.
Is it Paradise Theater?
I can't have been in Nevada. I was with you guys for some reason. Maybe we weren't in Nevada.
Park Theater in Paradise, Nevada.
Well, I wasn't there. I wasn't there. We watched, but I was with you guys.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole other side story. But we were so excited because we thought Roxanne was going to win a UFC title. Then Nico Montano happened and tilting us further into the darkest timeline. But back to my
happened. Like,
but back into my original point. I think they've always liked. Sijara was supposed to be in that inaugural flyweight title fight, and I think they've always at MSG, and I think they've always seen her potential from that show and thought like, man, if she can get the weight right at 125, she could still get back to be a contender. She's bounced between. She's taken some fights at bantamweight. She's got a 500 record. I think she's 7-7. Yeah. She's not the most super exciting fighter either, but she is a gamer. She does show up. They like that. And I have a feeling if we're getting down to the brass tacks, probably not the most highest paid fighter. I don't think she's in a bracket that worries them about keeping her employed. When they're doing their cuts and looking at their budget, who should we cut this year? She's way out of that. She's way out of that range. She is not making a dent in their finances. So I know that's kind of a cold-blooded way of looking at it, but if you're wondering if Sijara Eubanks is still with the company by the end of the year, just remember what I just said there, and you'll know why. The salary has a lot to do with it. So I don't know. I think this could be the end. This to me is almost a bridge too far, but again, wouldn't surprise me because they've kept her around for quite a while.
Yeah, I'll be shocked if they let her fight at 125 again. I mean, and dude, this sucks for Priscilla. Jeez, imagine big fight camp flying 14 hours from wherever she trains down in Brazil and just show up and like, all right.
And she's in a win streak. She's in a win streak. She's looking to get another shot at Valentina.
Yeah. Okay. We talked about this low before, but I think it's worth bringing up again.
Is a different fight on the card that could have been the main event. To me, I would have put Ketlin Vieira versus Raquel Pennington in the main event. A title shot against Amanda Nunes is on the line. Jed, do you agree with Joseph Bose's take here that Ketlin Vieira versus Raquel Pennington should have been bumped up to the main event?
No, because I have eyeballs and I don't want to have to gouge them out on Saturday. So I would prefer that to not have happened. I do think it would be the most quote unquote deserving should this have played out, because I don't know. I guess that this is technically a true statement, although I didn't really consider it. But just because, to me, Raquel Pennington should never get to fight Amanda Nunes again. Even though this would be her 5th win in a row, that first fight was just it erased any doubt. We don't need to do that again. We're good. We're covered. It's the same thing where it's theoretically, Caitlin Chookagian, if she had beaten Manon Fiorot, would deserve another shot at Valentina Shevchenko. But no one is confused about what will happen if she gets that. So why even bother? Technically, if Pennington wins, she probably actually still will get one. 5-fight win streak, and there is nobody else in this freaking division to give it to. But this fight always felt more like if Vieira can get this one done, she's just next in line because who else is going? But yeah, I guess it would have been fine to put it here, but I'm much happier with how things played out.
So if Raquel Pennington outdonas Vieira, just one shots her, knocks her out.
At least be cooler.
Yeah, is Rocky just one of those fighters because she lost so decisively over multiple rounds that it's literally just impossible for her to get another title shot? Just based on
I don't think it's impossible just because the division is so weak and a 5-fight win streak is nobody has it. So just based on that and Nunes theoretically wanting to fight at some point, that just kind of will make her next in line. But that Nunes is going to be a minus 1,300 favorite, and that's probably low. It's just why unless. Because the way her fights have gone since then have not given anybody any reason to be ooh, Pennington has made huge adjustments. She's gotten better. I'm not here to say she's the exact same fighter, but she isn't blowing the doors off people. You're oh, this can be substantively different. It's just she's tweaked things. She's tightened the springs a little bit. She's not competing in the same sport as Amanda Nunes, so it's not going to matter when they fight, but she might just get to do it because there's nobody else.
Yeah, and it's not just the one fight against Nunes that's like being held against her. You also keep in mind she's not the most respectfully not the most exciting fighter. I don't know if she's ever had.
No one in this division is exciting though, AK, except for occasionally Amanda Nunes is occasionally exciting.
Josiane Nunes, if we get Josiane Nunes, I guess Josiane Nunes. There you go. She's the best. But she doesn't fight enough yet. She will. This will be the year of Josiane. But outside, she's not the most exciting fighter, and it's not like she's a huge draw. And she's also not like, she's not fire on the microphone. Again, it sucks to say because she wins fights. Listen, she's a good fighter who wins fights. But all these things that matter in combat sports, like that get you to title shots, she just doesn't have it. She has to win so many fights. That's how she got her first title fight. She won, I think, 4 straight fights. So it's possible, but they're just in no rush to get her another title fight. I don't know if fans are clamoring for it. So she has just so much stacked up against her.
The matchmaker in me thinks that they're waiting just for the result of this fight. And what I mean by that is if Vieira wins, she'll get the shot. If Pennington wins, Aldana gets the shot. And then if something weird happens, Nunes will just fight like Norma Dumont at 145. But if Raquel wins, she doesn't get a title fight. I think she gets the fight that she's been wanting for many, many years, and she'll get the Juliana Pena fight. And that'll be the legit winner.
That fight would make more sense as a getting her a title fight. Because that's the other part of this, right? Like in her last title fight, she fought Miesha Tate, and you're like, okay, if she wins this, she gets it. It doesn't. Caitlin Vieira, no disrespect, it does not feel like beating her is how you get a title fight. So that actually makes a lot of sense to me, Mike.
All right. Let's keep going. What else we got?
But poor Pennington, who beat Aldana and is going to get jumped
Friend
over.
of the show, Alex Wendling. What is up? Friend of the show. People follow Alex Wendling on Twitter. She's putting out great grappling content. She's coming up in the grappling world. People always talking about people in
the karate world, the karate combat
and the
world
karate combat world. But she herself, I mean, is doing grappling. And, and doing great chronicling of her journey. People follow her because you're always saying, "Oh, us in the media, we don't know how to fight." Listen, we got 30-24 Casey Leiden over here. We got Alex Wendling tearing up the jiu-jitsu world. So. Please give her a follow on the social medias.
All right. Let's talk about this.
That Phil Haas loss on Imavov's record makes me question what really is his ceiling. Thoughts? I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about that, Casey?
I think if you actually watch the fight, it's not just. I mean. It was the fight could have gone to Imavov. I still scored for Haas, and that was like when Haas was. I would say he's still a really hot prospect. I know it's kind of cooled off, especially with the knee injury. He'll be out for a while right now, but that was an extremely close fight. And early, I think that was Imavov's maybe his first UFC fight or second UFC fight.
Second. I just
take that as a learning experience, and I think. Imavov is a much better fighter now, and that's it. I mean, how long ago was that? Like 3 years, 2 years?
That was February 2021.
Oh, that's 2021.
Okay.
February.
Almost 2 years now.
Yeah, I'm looking at MMA decisions.
Also,
almost everyone scored it for Haas. There were a couple draws, and 3 people scored it for Imavov.
The other problem with the way this is framed about the question of the ceiling is, look who your fucking middleweight champion of the world is. Phil Haas could absolutely tackle Alex Pereira to the ground in a 15-minute fight 3 times and hold him down. It's 100% a viable thing. Could happen to the current champion of the weight class. Because that's really what happened. Phil Haas is a damn good wrestler, and Imavov couldn't cope. I'm sure he's getting better. He's still young. He's improving. But of all the weight classes in the sport, middleweight is probably the one where you can get by the most without having to wrestle, just because of the current construction of the top of the weight class. If you can dodge Derek Brunson, you're mostly pretty good. And Robert Whitaker is the other guy who can do it all, but it's pretty easy to construct a path up this weight class without having to fight a guy who's going to tackle you a bunch.
Okie dokie.
Quick thoughts on One on Prime tonight.
So, for other MMA? Oh no, it's not MMA tonight. It's like
no,
everything tonight.
it's kickboxing tonight.
Oh, it's kickboxing.
It is theoretically very good. I think the kickboxing's tonight, and the other one's tomorrow. Because then they usually do the 2 thing. It's the Super Bond fight tonight. Which is sick. That's a hell of a kickboxing fight. But that's it.
Stamp is fighting. Stamp is fighting, by the way, for anyone who's
Stamp is fighting.
Yeah, very unfortunate. We don't know what happened to her originally scheduled opponent, but she stepping in on short notice. Anna Jarunsak. So I don't know. I'll be honest. I'm not familiar with.
Alan Song's fighting. Didn't know.
Alan Song's fighting. Gary Tonnen's fighting. That's always interesting. So there's names on here for even the more casual sort of viewers. There's definitely names that kind of pop out at you that you might recognize. But I saw a lot of people asking if Stamp was going to stay in the card. I didn't know she was, because this was yesterday that the ones. Well, I was going to blame their weight cutting dehydration thing, but again, we don't actually know why Anissa Mexen. Excuse me, I should have. Anissa Mexen was supposed to be Stamp's opponent, and that was going to be a really, really fun fight to watch. And for whatever reason, Anissa could not make it. So we don't know. I don't know if it has anything to do with the weight thing. They did have some other people miss. Some of these fights are now taking place at catch weights. But yeah, not a bad card. Definitely one. Hey, listen, you guys got your Amazon Prime loaded up. What else are you doing?
Looks like straight up kickboxing in a cage still feels weird to me whenever I watch it. And I'm by no means a huge kickboxing guy, but you're talking 2 of the actual 5 best kickboxers in the world are fighting tonight. It really doesn't get better in that sport than what one is doing on Friday night. So if you're inclined to watch fights that aren't mixed martial arts, if you don't like the mixing of the martial arts, Amazon Prime tonight, tune in.
Hey, awesome. Thanks for reminding me about that. I kind of forgot about that card, even though I remember looking at it early this week.
And that's a giant problem, Casey, that you didn't even know that. This
I love kickboxing. I love kickboxing.
How did you forget though? See, here's the thing. The one has actually done a very good job of making me remember shit like this because it's on Amazon. So if I'm on Amazon, the banners come up. Or if I'm on like Amazon Prime on my television or my Fire TV turns on, I keep seeing it. So I'm like, oh, I know this one. This is like where Bellator fails the hardest. There is nothing in my life that reminds me ever about a Bellator event outside of me being on Tapology.
The only reason I remember this fight is because of the weight, the weigh-in issues. Actually,
it's always the most fun.
Yeah,
it's always the most fun.
Weigh-in issues are the way to bring attention to a card for sure.
Anything else? We good?
Last question. Here we go.
All right. What does Mike's dog think? I don't know what he's thinking because he's in the house. He's out of Command Center 4.0 right now because every show that I've done in 2023, the dog has barked at least once. Every single one.
Those dogs are barking.
And he's like, he barks, but he's now discovering his voice more and more. And he just, like, if the wind blows outside.
That's a very poetic way to put that.
Yeah, he's found his voice. His confidence is there because, like,
discovering his voice.
Yeah, I think he's confident that, like, he's gonna stay here because he's got super abandonment issues, which is I don't know why anybody would get rid of this dog, but now he just barks at everything. Like, anything.
Mike, do you know why he's so excited? I'm gonna repeat this here because people may not have listened to our buy-sell prediction. I mean, I think everyone listened to our buy-sell prediction. But anyone who might have missed it, I made a declaration about the flyweight division. Who would be the champion by the end of 2023? I think it's the year of the raw dog. I have said
I was so proud of you for that.
Somehow I feel like Brandon Royval is going to sneak in there. So I think your dog is super excited. I think that's what it is. We're starting 2023 off on the right note. And let's just say it now. On the first preview show, the first UFC preview show of the year, let me just double down and say this could be the year of the raw dog.
It could be. Look, the Georgia Bulldogs won the Natty. So year of the dog, we could just be kicking it off right here.
Ooh,
maybe. Maybe. All right. Well, there's the music. All right, so thank you very much. First preview show of the year is in the books, knocking off the old rust. And we'll be back tomorrow for the first People's Pre-Fight Show of 2023. 3:30 Eastern, I think, is the plan. Maybe it'll be 4 if they push the start of the the card back now that we lost a fight, but we'll let you know. We'll let you know. And then Jose Youngs is actually going to be in the building tomorrow, so we'll have on-site coverage as well. So we'll see you tomorrow. And then, of course, AK and I will be back on Sunday for some matchmaking. There's the shirt. I still haven't got one yet. My wife has one. My son has one, but they don't have one in my size. And I really want a shirt. It's unbelievable. So for Casey, thank you. Jed, AK, I am Mike Heck. Appreciate you watching and listening.
Just getting zooming in.
Look at that. Look at that thread. Good night, everybody.
Look at that high thread count. So soft, so comfortable.
Happy birthday, AK. Weirdo.
Is that your? It looks like a couch.